All right, everybody, you have just tuned into the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Incorporated of South Florida. And by the way, I'll be touring the DEK roofing facilities in a few weeks when I head down to Florida. Been offered a very nice tour of the company and facility, and I will
get
be
some
reporting
pictures,
back.
man.
Oh, there will be pictures amongst many other things there. Roofing companies, very big deal in South Florida. You know, hurricanes come through there. Everybody needs a roof, or roof, depending on your pronunciations. Anyway, Ben and Ian are here, guys. We had some news today.
What news was that, Mark?
I know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, J.C. Hassenauer signed his signed to his exclusive rights free agent deal. That is the big story in Pittsburgh today.
The J.C. Hassenauer, the extended or exclusive rights free agent, signing for the hefty sum of $780,000 today. So that's it, guys. That's all we needed to do the show on tonight. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you next week, everyone.
Sweet. Crack a beer.
Yeah. Go ahead, because this is obviously going to take some time here. Look, I know there are many people that know the cap, and I know there are even way more that don't. But I will toot our horn. I think you two do as well, if not better than anybody at explaining this. So if you are tuning in to find out exactly how Ben Roethlisberger's deal is going to be played out, then you've come to the right place. So first of all, Ben is already like 3 or 4 beers in, so he might not be able to...
I just cracked my first one, and I ate dinner, okay. So I'm fine.
Oh, all right. Well, I was wondering if you'd be able to do simple math by the time we got done here, but...
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How are you? It is simple math. It really is.
Well, yeah, it is. Even I could figure it out as you guys explained it.
Yeah, it really is quite. And I'm just going to jump into it. Basically, Ben's cap number was $41.25 million.
Mm-hmm.
And as I explained, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, 22.25 of that was written in stone. That absolutely counts this year, no matter what. There's no way to get around that. So that
right, just to preface, doesn't matter if he would have been cut, retired. That was set in stone, as you said.
Right. Okay. So the only thing he could play with was the remaining 19 that he was set to make.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was give him a $5 million haircut. And as Mark put that today, that's a really expensive haircut.
It's an expensive haircut.
He took a $5 million pay cut. Okay. For his final year. He did the team a favor that way. He's making $14 million this year. And they lowered his base salary to the veteran minimum, which is $1.075 million. And the rest of it they converted into a signing bonus, which is $12.975 million. 12.925 million.
925, yes.
Yes. Okay. So you take that, and they added 4 voidable years, which is a big, big deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've never done voidable years. They've never even done an extension where they tacked fake years onto the end of a contract before.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Steelers moving into the 21st century. Really, this is momentous from a contract standpoint. It truly is. And it may just be a one-time thing where they went, we had COVID, and we got Ben. We want to keep him. We don't want him leaving on bad terms.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do this thing. We want him to play. This is going to be Ben's last year. This is Ben's last year round.
This contract is clear on that, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So, at the end of the league year, Ben's contract voids. Okay, but what they did was they take that 12.925 and they spread that hit out over 5 years. So, 2.59 of that plus the 1.075 million in base salary actually counts this year. 10.36 million of it gets spread out over the next 4 years. However, when Ben retires and when he retires, it's the wrong way to put it, when his contract voids at the end of the league year, it will void. All of that money, that 10.36, will accelerate, so to speak, and all count next year. Okay? So that's $10 million they shoved into next year, plus about 10.36 plus another $5 million that he took in a pay cut, and they created $15.36 million in cap space today. I do not believe the rumors that the cap's going to come in at 195, 198. I think that's bullshit. Twitter bullshit, Facebook bullshit, whatever you want to put it, it's bullshit. What you read on Instagram is not a source. So
it's not? What do you
mean? Wait a minute.
Yes,
Wait.
I was just pointed out to me today by these two. I had heard in December that Omar Khan thought it was going to come in about 180, a little higher. Okay. Yeah. Now they're talking about a little more money than that, but I think we're probably talking about somewhere in the range of 181 to 183 in there. And whatever it is, realize that's not what the number would be. They're borrowing money from future caps. And I don't know what that what that loan is going to be, so to speak, but that's going to be money that's not going to be available in future cap years. Because they're taking it this year. They're not going to realize that $4 billion loss in revenue they experienced in 2020 all at once. They're going to spread it out over 4 years.
And that will be predicated upon the TV deal that is currently in the works. Maybe. Yeah. I want to bring Ian in here because Ian, you and I were talking about this a little bit. It's something that I was asking in our group chat. And Ben alluded to the voidable years thing. And just as a very novice person, I said, hey, why the hell don't more teams do this? Why don't we do this? Voidable years, great. All right, so you have a little dead money, big deal. I mean, so explain exactly what this means here.
It essentially. It means Ben said it right. They put fake years on the end of the contract. Basically, this is a 5-year contract, but there's a clause that says the contract will void after, at a certain date, whether it's, March 5th, 2022, something like that.
Right.
Before the beginning of the next league year. And at that point, like Ben mentioned, all of the remaining signing bonus money that had been prorated over those future years then accelerates to 2022. We have about 10.3 million in dead money, and we deal with it and we move on. And we find a new quarterback next year. So Ben gets his last ride, and it is what it is. But this is not some. This is
so
not
what
the
you're
type
saying
of contract.
Is you don't think it'll be Mason Rudolph.
It will not be Mason Rudolph because A, he sucks, and B, he's entering the last year of his contract.
Yeah. We'll get to Mason here. Ian, continue. Yes. We'll get to him.
But to your question of why don't more teams do this, really, it's not a very player-friendly contract because the player's essentially agreeing that I will become a free agent, next year. So regular players that aren't in the last year of their career usually aren't willing to do these type of deals because they don't want to put that control over their future in jeopardy in the team's hands. They want to be more in control of their own future. So, they want to see longer term contracts. We saw this with Le'Veon Bell a few years ago. He wanted a really long, he wanted like 7 years or something ridiculous. But the players want a longer term contract, and other teams have signed players to long-term deals and cut them after 1 year. I think was it the Dolphins that just cut Cal Van Noy after 1 year into his contract, like a 5-year contract they signed him to?
If they haven't, they're going to. They said they're going to,
Yeah. So, the Steelers traditionally have always signed players to deals they thought that player would play out. When Troy retired early, when Heath retired early, they retired with 1 year left on their contracts. The Steelers had signed them to those deals, expecting them to play till the end of it, and the players opted to retire early. But in this case, Ben is saying, I will sign a paper deal essentially that really only exists on paper as being longer than 1 year, but it will totally go poof after the year is up, and then So it helps the Steelers from a cap standpoint this year, and Ben will essentially become a free agent after this season because the deal will void, and then we have to figure out what we're doing at quarterback because I'm assuming he's going to retire. This is his last rodeo, but that's why players don't do it, because it's not a player friendly contract. It's a team friendly contract because it allows the team to spread out the cap hit over multiple years, and doesn't do any good for the player or give them any kind of long term security in those voidable years.
But as far as that dead money, which that's just next year though, right?
Yes, that'd just be next year, and really, like $10 million is not that much.
Okay.
From an overall cap standpoint, we took a $20 million dead money hit on Antonio Brown. Right now, we've got about $9 million in dead cap space this year, just from Pouncey and Vance retiring. So $10 million is not that much.
I think dead money, the whole thing is just really overblown. It really is. Yes. It's less cap space that you can use this year, but there are a lot of people, agents in particular, but a lot of writers look at the cap and they go, the salary cap is a myth. It's BS, because there are so many ways to circumvent it. Voidable years being one of them. And you just borrow money from future caps, and you can just keep doing that forever. I mean, basically, you can just keep going and you can spend as much as you want or as little as you want. The Steelers are a conservative organization, and so they realize as many cap dollars as they possibly can every year, every season, and they right up against the cap. But it's because they're realizing the money that they spend in the same year as often as they possibly can, where other teams just try and shove things out as far as they can and create as much cap space as they can because that's their comfort zone. Pittsburgh doesn't operate like that. That's why voidable years is like, I mean, it blew my mind when that was 4 voidable years on a Steelers contract. Unbelievable. I mean, it's like earth shattering.
You were saying, Ben, that's something that Dan Rooney, prior to his passing, wanted to get rid of. Was that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. When the first team did it, when they realized that loophole was there, and I'm sure some agent brought it to them, Rooney was like, that's just circumventing the cap. That shouldn't be legal. We need to get rid of that. And he brought it up in the owners' meetings, and it went nowhere. So,
right.
I mean, that's something that my understanding, I mean, obviously I didn't know Mr. Rooney. Maybe we should have Ryan on here and ask him what he thought. My understanding was Mr. Rooney thought that was circumventing the cap, and that it gave big market teams an advantage because it just gave them more cap space to, they could just shove more money into a signing bonus and turn it, call it voidable years and create space that way. He didn't like it. He was not a fan. That's one of the reasons the Steelers have never done it. And the other is, like we talked about before, they're just kind of a conservative organization.
Yeah.
They really like to run their books as close to reality as possible, as close as you can in the NFL, which honestly, let's be honest, the salary cap is not reality. Okay. Every year teams spend more than the cap, and it doesn't count that way. Between signing bonuses and salaries, they spend more than the cap, but it doesn't really matter. The cap does keep things fairly competitive. I will say that for it. It's not like baseball where you have the Pirates on the low end of the spectrum and the Dodgers on the high end. That's the Dodgers payroll is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Now, are you saying that the Pirates don't spend money?
I'm saying that the Pirate fans are supporting a team that is an abject failure and is extremely profitable because their fans are conditioned to a team that is an abject failure, and they continue to support them. So if I were a Pirates fan, which I am not, I would not spend any money. All right, that would be my protest. I would spend
come on, I want to go to the ballpark.
No money with the Pirates. Nothing.
Well,
Nada.
okay, so that's enough Buccos talk. Yeah. So Ian, where are we now in terms of the cap, though? Because this is where I think a lot of the Twitter folks, this is where some of the misunderstanding comes in, because they see, oh, okay, we saved this. Well, that means we can sign Bud and Juju and bring back Mean Joe and everything else. So where are we with this cap now?
So it depends on where the cap number comes in, because we don't have a firm number on what the salary cap is going to be. We talked a few weeks ago. They said that the floor will be about 180. That that's the lowest it could possibly be, but it could be more. So right now, if it comes in at 180, then we're still a little bit over it. We're probably around 182 right now, I would say. If it comes in at 185, then we've maybe got $3 million or so right now. Now, remember, we don't have to be. They have to announce what the salary cap is, obviously, prior to the start of the league year, because it's required that all teams be under that number by the start of the league year. So, like Ben talked about earlier, and you talked about, they want to get the TV deal done so they can set the cap number for this year, and they're trying to get the TV deal done before they set the cap number, so that then teams have a target. They know what they have to hit to get under.
Future TV deal, basically.
Right.
I mean, that's it, because the TV deal does not affect 2021 dollars at all. Those are already set.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But they can borrow from it and use it to increase the cap this year.
Yes.
So yes. So with that in mind, then if they get that deal done, if the cap comes in at 185, 186, somewhere around there, then we'd have a little bit more room right now. Now, like I said, everyone has to be under the cap by the start of the league year. So the next 2 weeks are going to be a bloodbath of players getting cut league wide. And keep in mind too that when we start talking about free agents in a few weeks, when the new league year starts, that guys whose contract expired, who are going to be street free agents, count against your formula for compensatory picks, whereas guys who get cut do not count against that. The Ravens and the Patriots have done really good jobs at this over the years of signing guys who got cut by other teams, so it doesn't count against them for the comp pick formula, and they turn those into additional 3rd, 4th, 5th round comp picks, because they lose guys and they sign guys, but the guys they sign were not unrestricted free agents. They were guys who got cut. So keep that in mind, that when you see guys get cut, those are the guys you want to target in free agency, not the guys that are just regular free agents, because we're going to get a lot of comp picks next year, with the guys that are going to hit the market, with Dupree, assuming that Juju doesn't come back, although the talk is that he wants to. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, if they sign him to basically Jarvis Landry's contract, they could do it for about a $3.5 million cap hit this year. Granted, that's going to be a dramatic increase in future cap spending as well, because you're not going to get him for any cheaper than $15 million a year. He's probably worth at least $17 million, $18 million a year on the market. But we'll see. Juju's, everything he's saying is he wants to stay in Pittsburgh, but he's also said, he wants to make what he's worth on the market. So we'll see where that all goes. But
I want Elon Musk's money, and that ain't going to happen. So
so
why not?
So for all intents and purposes, to answer your question, we are right around where the salary cap should come in right now. And the Steelers like to have, I'll say, they need about $10 million under the cap in money during the course of the offseason, just to sign their draft picks, which is probably going to be $5 million. And then they like to have around $4 or $5 million going into any regular season, just because guys are going to get hurt. You got to sign guys. You need some flex room to do that. But you don't need all that money right up front in March. You just need to be under the cap in March. You can do additional restructurings, extensions, things like that to lower your cap numbers over the summer, when you got to sign your draft picks and do some deals in camp where you could lower some numbers to have that flex room going into the season. Because as we know, they don't sign guys to new contracts during the regular season. So there's some potential here. Stephon Tuitt, they could restructure. Guys like Steven Nelson, TJ Watt, Eric Ebron, they could look to extend. The real interesting ones we talked about before, like Joe Hayden and Vince Williams, who are in the last year of their deals and are probably in close to the last years of their Steelers careers. So, do you really want to extend those guys, or what do you want to do there? I'd much rather extend Steven Nelson and try and sign like Cam Sutton than extending Joe Hayden. So we'll see what happens. But they have room. They'll have room. They have flexibility. But right now they're pretty much right up against it. So in order to actually sign any free agents once, the middle of the month hits and the new league year starts, they will have to do some additional either restructurings or cuts. But right now they should be right around where the cap comes in.
Yeah, and I, as you pointed out, your goal on that first day of the league year is just to be cap compliant, and then it kind of becomes a free for all over again.
And one other thing too, since you mentioned that first day of the league year thing, the Steelers traditionally have not engaged in ridiculous free agent signings in the first week or so of free agency. They tend to let the stupid money happen first, and then they try to sweep in and sign guys to lower money but smarter deals. And sometimes they work out. Sometimes you get a Tyson Alualu who plays great for you. Sometimes you get a Mike Mitchell who's a bum. So I guess I could have picked the same position. Sometimes you get Cam Thomas who sucks. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the Steelers are typically not super active in the first week or so of free agency. So I would not expect that to change this year either. Don't expect them to go out and try and make an early splash. They're going to let the stupid money flow and then see who's left and try and sign some guys to smart, relatively cheap deals, which, as we saw from an article on NBC Sports that Warren Sharp did, is actually how you build Super Bowl contenders, by signing free agents to usually short-term 1 or 2 year, relatively cheap, team-friendly deals. And there's probably going to be a lot of that going around this year because the cap is so much lower and so many guys are going to get cut. So guys are going to want to work. And, once the stupid money flows around, whatever's left, guys are going to have to take what they can get.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that article that he wrote, because it's excellent. I mean, it will define exactly what many of us have said for a long time. The Washington teams of old that used to sign every freaking top line free agent and still sucked. The graphs that he provides in that article are really, really good. You're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. Whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, or condos, contact DEK Roofing today by visiting dekroofing.com. So Ben, I know you're a big fan of Mason Rudolph, and you're obviously very heartbroken over this development. Where are you if you're Mason Rudolph? I mean, are you already looking ahead to next year, thinking I'm not coming back to this place no matter what they tell me?
Maybe. I think if you're Mason Rudolph, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do, I mean, there's a cliche, you control what you can control, but it's true. Yeah. It's true. So, I mean, basically, the best outcome that Mason is going to get is busting his ass this year, trying to be the best player he can be, and then at the end of the year, taking a look back at things and deciding what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, he shouldn't even be thinking about it. He should just be getting ready to play next year, preparing like he's the starter every week, because you never know what could happen. Obviously, 2019, we saw that.
Right.
And if that happens, yes, the season's pretty much over. But, if Mason has to start, he has to start. I said several weeks ago, I don't know what podcast that was because I don't even remember saying it. I said, if you put Josh Dobbs' brain in Mason Rudolph's body, he'd be a good quarterback. I don't believe that Mason can read defenses.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the arm strength to throw deep outs. He can throw a deep ball between the numbers.
Very nice deep ball. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say very nice, but he can throw a deep ball between numbers. It's okay, but he can't throw a deep out because he lofts the ball, puts too much air under it, and it gives the DB time to make up
absolutely
the separation. So they either have a chance at a breakup or a pick, and that's just not what you want. One of the things that Mason has done several times on outs is throwing the ball slightly behind the receiver or to the inside shoulder, and that's just not a ball you want to see from your quarterback on an out. He's also very heavy-footed in the pocket, and he can't seem to feel the pass rush. How is that possible? On top of that, Mason's parents were both college athletes. How the fuck is he that slow? How is he that unathletic? I don't get it. So it's a little bit frustrating for me personally. But as Ian pointed out when they drafted him, and I agreed, I basically was like, this was a terrible draft choice. I can't believe they did this. So yes, guys, I am biased, but I would really, really like Mason to prove me wrong. It would be great because now he's a Steeler. It would be fantastic if he would just prove Ben wrong. That would be awesome, but he hasn't. And as Ian pointed out, as I started to allude to before, never trust a Big 12 quarterback. Never. Because they need guys that are schemed open, that are Big 12 open, to have enough trust in the situation to hit them in the field. And Mason constantly comes back to the check down. Constantly. So he's got to get past being check down Charlie and actually trust his receivers, throw into tight windows, which I don't know if he's capable of doing. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't think he is outside the numbers, personally.
No, I don't
inside the numbers? Sure.
Ian, do you think that in this final year for Ben Roethlisberger, do you think they'll do anything different with him, or do you still expect to see the Veterans Days off on Wednesday and so on and so forth?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they'll give him the Veterans Days off and all that. Yeah. As far as doing anything different in the actual offense, I was thinking about this. When the offense really took a step back, like when we really went into that short passing game, it was after Ben injured his knee in Dallas, and he really couldn't move after that. I mean, I still can't believe he came out and played the second half of that game. Yeah. And thank goodness we won that game. But nevertheless, like he really couldn't move at all. I mean, it wasn't quite a Byron Leftwich at Marshall needing his lineman to carry him down the field situation, but that really hampered his mobility. And he wasn't super mobile before that, but he was more mobile than he was after, his knee got banged into. So, hopefully with a full off season that, he's able to do at least a little more of, a play action bootleg. Like he just wasn't mobile enough to do that. I mean, he was basically taking a shotgun snap and either handing off or having to plant and throw because the line was so bad that there was pressure in his face all the time and he had to get rid of it so fast. I think we talked about it last week on the show that Ben had the quickest release time in the league, but like the 12th most quarterback pressures or something like that. Yeah. So there was a big disparity there between like, you think if you have a quick release time, you're not going to get pressured that much, but he had a quick release and was getting pressured all the time, which just shows that like the line was like the Maginot line or a block of Swiss cheese or a turnstile or whatever analogy you want to pull from, that they just weren't good, and it affected the offense because Ben didn't have time to throw down the field. And we talked about it a lot on the show that, we felt like he was having trouble stepping into throws and couldn't use his plant foot and things like that. So I'm hoping that, Canada likes the motion stuff. He likes the play actions. He likes the rollouts, things like that. So, if Ben has two good knees that he's able to actually roll out when he throws, they can do some different things than what they did this year.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I don't know. A lot of people are just glad Randy's gone, and I totally understand that. So,
wait a minute. Since we're discussing this,
yes,
this is something I frequently debate on social media. Is Randy getting fired? Randy and Sean Surratt getting the axe, is that going to fix everything that's wrong with this offense? Because I don't think it will.
Not completely.
Not completely?
Not completely. No. So
not half of the shit that's wrong with that offense is going to be solved by those two coaches getting axed.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it goes hand in hand that the scheme was bad. They weren't putting players in good positions, but also
fair.
The blocking was terrible. You got to fix the offensive line. If you fix the offensive line, then you give your running backs holes to run through instead of having to make moves 2 yards in the backfield just to get back to the line of scrimmage after they, if you get 2 or 3 yards after contact, you want that to be down the field, not in the backfield, right? And then it actually gives your quarterback time to look at more than one read and throw the ball too. So I'd say, yeah, the scheme was bad. The plays were bad. The plays were predictable. Everybody knew what we were going to do, but also you got to fix the personnel on the field too. The personnel on the field has to play.
Where I'm going with it. The plays were predictable because the personnel was predictable. Okay. The run game was not a threat at all, period.
At all.
Yep.
So when you ran play action, the defenses didn't pay attention to it.
No.
The offensive line couldn't fucking block. So defenses could dictate what we could and could not do. At the end of the year, in my opinion, Ben had thrown so many times that his arm was dead. And the thing that I'd really like to see change was a more balanced attack, because if you run the ball more and you can do that successfully, your quarterback has to throw it less, which is less wear and tear on his arm. Okay, so then you still have a guy who can throw the ball in December. Number 3, after that, you have a guy the deep passing game was never successful all season. Never. I mean, very, very rarely. With rare exception, Ben would overthrow his receivers. Okay?
Yes.
That was no threat either, so why defend it? Why keep a deep safety or 2 deep safeties back there when the deep passing game isn't a threat anyway? So screw it. I mean, maybe we'll get burned once, so we'll just keep one safety back who can play catch up if something bad happens, and maybe we won't give up a big play. Nobody played cover 2 against the Steelers. You kidding me? There were 10 guys in the box.
It was the cover 1 all the time. Yeah.
You can dictate terms versus an offense that is that one-dimensional, especially when the line sucks. And when your line improves, you can then dictate back to the defense. If your line cannot be stopped, which I'm not saying they're going to go from being horrible to being that kind of a dominant offensive line in 1 year, but when your line is really good, you can dictate to the defense. You can give your quarterback more time. You can open up holes. You can do all kinds of other things that make life a lot easier for your skill position players. And in my opinion, that's the biggest issue that's wrong with this offense is the offensive line. Yes, it was poorly coached. I will agree. They regressed under Surratt, which is really disappointing and surprising given the fact that he understudied under Munchak for 5 years. But they need an infusion of talent. Okay? Absolutely need it at center now because Pouncey's gone. Right. And the last couple of years, let's be frank, he was not Marquise Pouncey anymore. On top of that, the tackle play was underwhelming on the best day and flat out terrible on other days. Guards, you still have DeCastro. My feeling is when he gets to be 100% healthy, he'll be dominant. He'll be fine. You've got Dotson coming up, Kevin Dotson coming up, and he's going to be, I think he's going to be a very good guard. I wish they just would have played him all year and let him make mistakes as a rookie so that he would grow and learn by them. That would have been fantastic, but they didn't. They made a choice to try and go with the veteran presence of Matt Filer, and now Matt Filer will likely leave. Thank God. Because he was bad last year.
Well, might I interject here as well?
Please.
We're paying a fullback about $3 million, and he had 52 snaps all season, I believe.
Yeah, that was a mistake, and I don't think it was a mistake signing him. I think it was a mistake the way that he was utilized.
Absolutely,
and he has to be disappointed in the role that he played, which was basically core special teamer at $3 million plus per year. I don't know how or if Canada will use Derek Watt. I don't know. We'll see. I would hope that he would use him more effectively than Randy did. The reason, in my opinion, they did not use the fullback much was the running game was non-existent. So, you can do all kinds of things with your fullback when he's a threat to run or catch a pass. But when the only threat is he might catch a 2-yard pattern, we can cover that easy.
Yeah. Since we're talking a little running backs, let's
actually. Can I make one other comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Ben mentioned about the play action game not working because it didn't surprise anyone. Typically with most quarterbacks around the league, they're much better on play action, right? Because it freezes the defense a little bit, gives them more time to look things over. You can usually take more shots down the field, right? So usually you see quarterbacks having better statistics on play action than on non-play action passes. Last year, on play action passes, Ben Roethlisberger completed 54% of his passes, had a 74.5 passer rating,
terrible,
and 5.29 average yards per attempt. On non-play action passes, he had a 66% completion rating, so 12% better on non-play action, a 95.8 passer rating, so like 20 points better on non-play action passes, and an average yards per attempt of 6.7, so a yard and a half better. So basically on non-play action passes, he was Matthew Stafford good. On play action passes, he was like Alex Smith, Drew Luck, Dwayne Haskins bad. So like the splits on that are insane because typically it's the other way around, that a quarterback is not as good regularly, but you run play action to give them easier reads, to give them easier throws. Like Baker Mayfield's splits are insane. Baker Mayfield on play action passes is basically like Aaron Rodgers, and on non-play action passes is like Andy Dalton. So
and why is that? Because their running game is dominant.
Because they can run the football.
Because their running game is dominant. And I'm glad you brought that up, because people don't realize how important, how impactful that is. The swing going the wrong direction when it should be helpful and it actually hurts you. That's how bad the running game this year. And yeah, again, don't blame it all on Randy. It's not all on Randy. If players execute, if they block the guy in front of them and make holes, the running game works. If they don't, it doesn't. The end. Yes, our running backs aren't great. Yes, they miss some open holes here and there. But on every play, no. Not even maybe. There were guys hitting them in the backfield. And when you have a running back that can consistently get some momentum and get to the second level because his line is blocking well for him, he looks outstanding. And when you have a guy who can't gain any momentum and can't get anywhere because he's getting hit before he even gets to the line of scrimmage, yeah, your running game sucks.
Well, that's a terrific.
That's a great segue.
That's a great segue and rant and everything else. And I'm just going to kind of finish it by saying Randy sucks. So in any case,
all on Randy. Was not all on Randy.
No,
sorry.
No, I agree. It's not.
Players
it never
do
is.
Not get off.
It's never always on the offensive or defensive coordinator. You've got to have players that execute well. And when they don't, that's who it comes back on. So yeah, I agree with you. I just like to be on the.
I say that as a guy. I say that as a guy who I swear I've hated every offensive coordinator we've ever had that I can recall. Whisenhunt, I finally decided I liked, and then he left.
Yeah, well, of course,
we left because he didn't get the head coaching job.
Yeah, pretty much.
One other thing I want to cover tonight is seemingly endless debate, and thankfully it will come to an end after the first round of the NFL draft. A lot of people are talking about, do you take the running back or do you take the offensive lineman with the pick there at 24, assuming that's where we stay, all that stuff. Ian, you've done a ton of research on this, and we've talked a lot about it too. For every Steeler fan that wants Najee Harris in the first round at 24, there's the same amount that would rather have an offensive lineman. So where do you go on this?
Yes. So let me just preface this by saying I would absolutely love to see Najee Harris as a Pittsburgh Steeler. He would be a great addition to this team. That being said, and if we draft Najee Harris, I will not be disappointed because I would love to have him on the team. That being said, statistically, over the last 2 years, starting running backs have only 12.5% of them, 8 out of 64 have started all 16 games over the last 2 years. So any running back you have, whether it's first round draft pick or a guy you scoop up in undrafted free agency, or a guy who's already on your team, not very likely he's going to start all 16 games. They're probably going to get injured. Running backs tend to burn out after 4, 5, 6 years. So it's a short-term investment. Running backs really are kind of a luxury pick and you can get good guys in the second and third round. Like, look at some of the best backs in the league. Derrick Henry, second round pick. Dalvin Cook, second round pick. Le'Veon Bell was a second round pick. So you can get good quality running backs in the second and third rounds of the draft that can do a lot of similar things and give you similar production to what a first round pick can give you. That being said, there is a much more significant drop off for offensive linemen. So I haven't actually published this yet, but I've been pulling some numbers together that over the last 10 drafts, they're looking at the offensive linemen drafted in the first round, 30% of them went on to become Pro Bowlers. In the second round, that goes down to 10%. And then after that, it's like 8% in the third round, 2% in the fourth round, and none in the fifth round. So if you want a quality offensive lineman, you got to use a first round pick to get them. And primarily it's tackles, actually. I was looking through like the depth charts today for all the teams from this past year. And most of the starting tackles around the league were either first round picks by that team or were a first round pick from another team that someone else signed in free agency. So a vast majority of tackles have been first round picks. Interior offensive linemen, yeah, you can find them in other rounds.
But can they contribute year one? Because that's what we need this year.
No, not as much.
That's where I'm at with it. Well, I mean, basically, you have to take a guy. You have to take a guy on that line this year who can contribute this year.
Yes.
You cannot count on the fact that you can develop a mid-round offensive lineman or an undrafted offensive lineman. This is the thing that keeps being pointed out to me is look at all the guys for the Steelers that were late-round draft picks or mid-round draft picks or were undrafted guys that were developed and turned into starters. Yeah.
They developed over 4 years. They didn't start the first year. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. They didn't start right out of the gate. That's total bullshit. And that's what we need this year. We need a guy who can play this year.
Right. No, the only exception I'll say to that is like let's say we draft a tackle in the first round and then take like Creed Humphrey as a center in the second round, or take the kid from Wisconsin Whitewater in the third round. Like those centers, you could plug them in and start right away as a second or third round pick. I have less confidence in a second or third round tackle starting this year than I do a first round tackle. I think a first round tackle you can plug him in, start him this year. But I think if you want to look at it that way, that we definitely need to address the center position too. But I think at some point, you're going to have to look at who's the best guy on the board. And this is a really good draft for tackles. There might be 6 tackles taken in the first round this year. This is a really good draft for offensive tackles.
Well, agreed. And Ben, that's where I was going to go here, because there are some really good offensive tackles, but is there a significant drop off though? Meaning, let's say there's 3 or 4 that are just bona fide first round guys, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 that are like, second round, maybe end of the first round. Is there concern that the Steelers, because they need a tackle, that they're just going to take one when maybe it's not a guy they would normally take in that spot?
No, I don't think they will. I mean, I think they'll take a guy at a position of need in the first. But they have so many positions of need that
they do.
I'll be frank, it really kind of won't matter. I mean, other than I wouldn't take a running back. I wouldn't take a quarterback unless somebody falls like an Aaron Rodgers, in which case, what do you, I mean, you have to do that. Trey Lance falls to 24. You got to take him. Yes. I don't see it happening, but if he did, yeah, you got to do it.
If Justin Fields falls to 24, like Charlie Casserly had, which is insane, but if it happens, yes, you have to take him.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that too. But yeah, I would. My druthers is that they take an offensive lineman, be it an interior offensive lineman that they're going to convert to center, or a center. I don't think there's a center worthy of a first round grade this year.
I don't either.
That's my opinion. And I don't think that Landon Dickerson, who Mel Kiper projected to the Steelers, I don't think he fits the scheme that they seem to indicate they're going to be running. They're going to run a zone blocking scheme. And Dickerson is a power gap blocking, power scheme only guy. He also plays really high from a technical standpoint. He needs some work. He beat up on the guys that he played in college because he was more powerful than they were, and he got away with that shit. He will not get away with it in the NFL.
Also has the injury history too.
And he has the injury history as well. He's only played one season where he was injury free in his life, and he's a fifth-year senior. You don't like guys like that in the first round if you're the Steelers. You want the guy, they like to get the guy who his first year in the NFL, maybe he's not quite ready to play there, but they're developing him themselves rather than counting on a college program to develop him.
Yeah. And for the people listening that didn't listen to last week's podcast, Ellie did a great job breaking down Dickerson. So go listen to that because she did a great job with her draft preview of Landon Dickerson and breaking him down on the podcast last week.
I still haven't listened to it. Did you guys cut out the part where I called in?
No, we left it on there specifically so everyone could hear what a jackass you were.
Oh, well, I couldn't hear anything. I was trying to call in on purpose.
We expected it. Yeah. For those listening now, Ben's birthday was last week during the show, and Ellie graciously jumped in for him, and he decided he was going to call from the drinking establishment that he was at. And, it's 10 seconds of fuzzy air. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, well, wait a minute. I want to make one more point here real quickly.
Okay, all right.
I don't see him being taken in the first round, but the guy that I'm really in love with at running back in this draft is Javonte Williams.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
And if the Steelers got him, I would be so fucking happy. But I think he projects to be taken somewhere between the Steelers' first and second round pick.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So I'm kind of a mindset where it's like, okay, you're going to need to trade up in the second if you want to get this guy, or it isn't going to happen. But man, that's the guy I want to see him grab. He looks
well. I have him mocked to the Steelers in the second, and
I don't think it lapped to 58. I don't see it.
No, I don't know.
55.
55. No, I as the week has gone on, I don't think he will either. I think it's going to require a move up. He's just getting too much attention for obvious reasons and stuff. So I'm with you on that. I really like the kid a lot. He's basically a truck.
It isn't just that. He's a truck that can move.
Yeah, he's got some.
He reminds me of Bettis. I think he's going to be a tubby bitch when he gets into his 30s. But I'm like, whatever. You can move like that. Look back at Jerome Bettis's rookie film and go,
"Oh, it's unbelievable!
God, how can a guy that big move like that?"
They're not supposed to. But yeah, I like both of the North Carolina running backs, and obviously I've been a big fan of Travis Etienne for a while, but he's not gonna. I mean, he's gonna be out of range too. It's gonna be. I mean, he's either gonna go late first round or early second round, and
more than likely.
Yeah.
So those were the main things, and of course we led the show tonight with the huge news about J.C. Hassenauer signing his exclusive rights free agent deal for $780,000. Hey, look! Right now he's the only center. So just go ahead, pencil him in there,
Mark.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you though. Since Ben Roethlisberger is now coming back for this year, once we get to say August, do you think there's any chance he tries to talk Marquise Pouncey out of retirement? Be like, hey, dude, come back one more year, take a cheap deal, come play with me.
I think it's already happened, to be honest, and I think Marquise has said, nah, I'm done.
Oh yeah, that attempt was made. Yeah, 100%.
Yes,
that attempt was absolutely made. But Marquise and his brother agreed that they were going to retire at the same time years ago.
Yeah,
and Mike has had a lot more injuries than Marquise.
He has, believe it or not.
And Marquise hasn't exactly, escaped unscathed himself. So I mean, I don't see it happening pretty much because of that, because of the tolls taken on their bodies. And I think when you're looking at your brother and seeing that and projecting it on yourself, that's really hard for that not to hit home. When it happens to a teammate, that's one thing. When it happens to your own brother,
especially your twin brother, who
Well, too, and you guys alluded to this too. I mean, he isn't the same guy he was before the last few years. Now, is he better than J.C. Hassenauer? Yes. Okay, that's not even a question. But I guess really to go back to your question, Ian, if it's August and the Steelers haven't figured out who their center is, can I see Ben maybe playing on Marquise's feelings that, hey man, it's your first time not playing football in a long time. It's August. Love to have you here in camp. Blah blah blah. Sure, I can see it happening. I don't think it's gonna, but I can see Ben trying to do that. I guess is what I'm getting at. And I guess, guys, one more thing. We didn't really talk too much about it. Juju did comment on the Steelers' Instagram post today about Ben, restructuring his deal. Which of course, as we all know, when players comment on Instagram, that's usually like gold, that whatever they say is going to happen. And I'm being a bit facetious there. Ian, does this in any way, shape, or form make things easier to bring Juju back?
No, not any more than anything else he said. I mean, he had the comments we talked about a few weeks ago with like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Guys who've left Pittsburgh haven't always done so well. I like what I've done here. I've built my brand here, and he's right about that too. But at the end of the day, he's probably going to go the route of what several other Steelers free agents have done, where the Steelers let him test the market and say, hey, call us and tell us what kind of numbers you're seeing out there, and we'll see if we can match it. And for most likely, some team's going to want to throw bigger money at him than what the Steelers are able to pay, and he's going to have to make a choice of, do I take significantly less money to stay in Pittsburgh or take more money to go play elsewhere? I mean, when you're talking about the difference between a $15 million a year versus a $17 or $18 million a year contract, I mean, that's probably going to be a 4 or 5 year deal. You're probably talking about, that's $10 to $12 million. And on top of that, it really, what the number that matters is the guaranteed money. And the Steelers traditionally have not guaranteed any more than the signing bonus in their contracts, whereas other teams are now guaranteeing a lot more than that to their players. So, and let's not forget too, the Steelers have signed TJ Watt, and they're going to give him 125, 130, maybe $150 million. So, they are going to pay TJ Watt's got to be the priority, and they're going to have to pay him a huge contract. So, that's where your money needs to go.
Right.
The not cap dollars, but actual real money in the bank dollars, because of the requirements to put money in escrow to pay for contract, all that stuff. So it's going to be tight. Could they sign Juju under the cap if they wanted to? Yes. Would it be for less than what Juju can get on the open market? Also, yes. But we'll see.
We'll see.
But I don't think it changes anything.
No, I don't really either. Ben, what about Bud Dupree? Does it change anything for him?
No. And listen, people keep concentrating on the fact that the Steelers have all this cap space in future years, and they can make a deal with Bud now and have a small cap hit this year and big cap hits in the future. Yeah, they could do that, but that's not the way they're looking at it. They're not looking at it from that standpoint. The Steelers are strictly looking at it going, okay, TJ Watt is going to be the highest paid defender in the NFL. That's happening. There's no fighting it. It's going to happen. We're talking probably close to $30 million a year, if not $30 million a year. Bud is going to make 17 or 18. So let's just say hypothetically that TJ, let's be fair, we'll call it 29 million and Bud's making 18. That's $47 million per year dedicated to just the starting edge spots. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
That isn't happening. They're just not going to do that because that's too high a percentage of your entire cap devoted to two spots on one unit. They're just not going to do it. It just isn't smart football. It's not an egregious use. Excuse me. It's not.
It is an egregious use.
It is an egregious use. Yeah. I just burped on the podcast. That's fantastic. It's an egregious use of cap dollars dedicated to one spot. It just isn't. It's not prudent. And the Pittsburgh Steelers define prudence.
And that's exactly what I would say to fans. Put it just like that. When they start screaming on Twitter, oh, we can get Bud Dupree. You're not going to pay two outside linebackers literally $50 million. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, not quite 50, but almost.
I know what you mean. It's damn close.
Honestly, yeah, it's a shit ton of money. When the salary cap is almost $200 million, you're not going to pay two guys 25% of it.
No, I don't see it happening. And we're at about an hour, so it's perfect time to get on.
Whatever.
Yeah,
let's talk about some more stuff.
Yeah. Like what?
Like what?
Like what happens if the Steelers don't draft a lineman or running back?
Who would you? Let's put it this way: since we're right up against it. Let's talk about this. Who might the Steelers cut to make cap space? Who might the Steelers say you need to take a pay cut to stay with us?
Well, Joe Hayden clearly doesn't think it's going to be him.
It's not going to be.
Yeah, and I don't think it is either. He saw a report from another outlet that suggested it was actually John Clayton. Yeah,
John Clayton doesn't know shit anymore. I'm sorry. John Clayton at one time was an outstanding reporter.
Terrific.
He was fantastic, and I don't know if he's lost credibility with his sources and so they don't tell him anything anymore, or if he's gotten lazy. A lot of guys get lazy as they get older and don't make the calls anymore. They don't really know what's going on. I think he's purely speculating.
Well, he said several weeks ago that he thought Dupree would sign 1 year, $6 million, which is just preposterous. And then he said today that he thinks that they'll create more space by cutting Hayden and Vince Williams. I'll be honest, Vince, I can see.
Fuck you, Mark.
I don't like it. I didn't say I liked it, but I can see it.
I really hope that doesn't happen.
I agree. I'm with you. I mean, there are a few Steelers over the last 20 years that I respect as much as that guy. And I will hate to see it, but I think it's very, very possible. Outside of that, I really honestly don't know. But that's what we'll be looking at over the next 12 days is the bloodbath that is coming.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, real quickly, who would you guys see as a potential for a either cap cut or a guy they go to and they say, if you want to play next year, you're taking a pay cut?
Derek Watt.
I think you have to start with Derek Watt. You have to. I mean, now here's the problem. It's not his fault that they threw that money at him and then didn't use him. That's not his fault. But at the same time, I could see them going to him and say, Derek, our initial plans to use you just didn't come through. So, hey, we're going to ask you to take a cut. I don't know. Who are you thinking, Ben?
Vince.
Yeah,
which really makes me ill.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I mean, look down the list. Hayden is in the last year of his deal. Like we talked about, you don't really want to extend
Nelson, you're not cutting either one of those
right.
guys.
It
isn't happening.
Yeah. Well, Tuitt, you could restructure because he's got years left. Nelson, you want to extend.
Wait a minute. Like you're going to cut. You're going to cut. You wouldn't even think about cutting Tuitt.
No, that's what I mean. No. I'm saying you restructure his current deal to save cap space. Nelson, you want to extend. He's in the last year of his deal. Tuitt's like the only guy in the top 5 of our contract, maybe top 7 of our contracts that actually has years left after this year. Everyone else is entering the last year of their deal. Nelson, you want to extend. DeCastro, he's entering the last year of his deal. I really don't know what you want to do there. I mean, he might retire after this year, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe you offer him an extension, but I don't know if he'll take it or not. TJ Watt, we already talked about. They're going to make him the highest paid defensive player in the league. Eric Ebron, if they had any other option at tight end, would be a candidate because you could save $6 million by cutting him. But they have no other options because Zach Gentry sucks. So
what are you saying? You're saying that Zach Gentry is not good?
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely saying Zach Gentry is not good.
I think that's terrible.
Is there a show in the last 3 months where that hasn't come up?
No, because he sucks. So
and he's from Michigan, might I add.
There we go. Yeah,
which is, the bastion of shitty fucking overrated players with an overrated coach.
We've got a lot of suck going on in this state right now, so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, well, whatever.
All right, so Ebron, you either give him the $6 million salary he's due this year,
which is going to happen, or you extend him.
Right? And then Hayward, they already restructured, and then you're at Vince. We just talked about him. Devin Bush still on his rookie deal. You're not going to do anything with him. And then you're at Boswell and Derek Watt. So I mean, Derek. When you ask for the first name, like you look down the list of biggest cap hits, you're not touching Boswell. So it's Derek Watt.
Yeah, I guess. I think what you need to do is extend a handful of guys in order to create space. You can restructure Boz. You can restructure a couple of other guys. Vince probably isn't going to get a restructure. Vince is, I'm almost certain, not going to get an extension.
No.
Which, kind of sucks because you root for the guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Looking at the rest of it, I mean, DeCastro, you can extend him. Nelson, you can extend him. Hayden, you could extend. And the circumstances are a little bit dire, so maybe they will, but I think they'll wait till after the draft to see what they pick up. Because, honestly, they could be in a position in the first round where the best available player is a cornerback. And if that's the case, that changes things entirely.
Big time.
Where there's not an offensive lineman worthy of the pick at 24. Mm-hmm. There's not a linebacker worthy of the pick at 24. And Jesus, please, baby Jesus, do not take a fucking running back at 24.
Well, that's been my kind of argument is what if that offensive lineman is not there? I don't want him to reach for one.
Neither do I.
So that's where that cornerback comes in.
Artie fucking Burns all over again. And that wasn't all Artie's fault,
No.
It really wasn't. He started his career with a free safety in Mike Mitchell, who, constantly pointing at each other going, I thought you had it. Continual miscommunication in the defensive backfield, which hasn't been an issue at all since Minka took over.
Artie and Mike Mitchell were like the beginning of that whole Spider-Man point at each other meme.
I guess it was continual thing where they were not on the same page, and there was constant miscommunication, and you wondered whose fault it was, and Mike's play started to slip, and now he's out of the fucking league.
Oh, yeah.
Not a bad guy, not a good free safety. but I digress.
Well,
Artie wasn't necessarily a terrible choice, but he was a reach. He shouldn't have been taken at that pick.
Agree.
Okay, and you don't want to see them do that again. They have needs at multiple places. You know, let's hope that they use that egregiously. Jesus.
I'm going to send you my Webster's dictionary.
I have been drinking. I have. Let's hope that they use this, you know, and do so intelligently.
There we go. That'll work.
You know.
Yeah. You want to know what really stings though? Who is the next cornerback taken after Artie Burns?
I don't know.
In that draft, 2016. Xavier Howard by the Miami Dolphins, and he turned out to be a fucking stud.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Led the league in picks, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah.
This year,
We took Burns at 25. The next corner didn't go off the board till Howard at 38. So it was beginning of the second round, but still, like, you know, it was 13 picks later, but still Howard was the next corner off the board.
Yeah.
3 fingers of whiskey.
Yeah.
Prudence.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to get us on out of here.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. The audience is
maybe we just need to have a podcast of Ian complains about the Steelers draft misses over the years, because I've got a couple I could. I'm going to need a lot more whiskey for that.
Yeah.
You can have the airing of the grievances.
Yes, that would be.
The airing of the grievances episode. Shit, we should have done that in December.
Yeah.
No, that would have been a bad time. You don't want to add to that fire. That was a shit show in December.
Well, that's true. That's true. It's still, yeah, we'd have to move it to the end of the season. So
I really hope that the Steelers
Festivus.
Springtime Jesus Christ. I really hope the Steelers use this draft very wisely, because I look at the roster right now and I find it difficult to believe that any player who's drafted this year, and they're probably going to end up with 9 draft choices, that any player who's drafted won't make this roster. They're not very solid as things sit right now.
They're going to have to rely on some youth.
Yeah, they are. They're going to get younger. And in my opinion, there will be a regression next season.
Well, we have plenty of time to talk about that.
Mark obviously wants to go to bed because he has to teach children tomorrow.
I actually have to work tomorrow.
So do I. And it's really late here. It's like
the sun's still out there.
It's almost 8:30 right now.
Unbelievable. Anyway, you've been listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And we will catch up with you again next week. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.